As many of you guys know, I've been writing my book about the PlayStation Vita called Vita Means Life. And one of the new chapters I'm putting into the book is about PlayStation Mobile. And I wanted to talk about PlayStation Mobile because I think it's a really interesting and important subject, and also kind of disappointing in terms of the way Sony handled it and sort of what it means for me in terms of digital gaming and the digital future of gaming. So if you don't know about it, PlayStation Mobile originally was announced when the Vita was announced as NGP in January 2011. It was called PlayStation Suite. And basically the idea was that it was a bridge between mobile devices, gaming, and games on the Vita. They announced it properly in the lead up to the Vita's launch, and they renamed it PlayStation Mobile. And the way it works basically is that they opened up a new games store, a new kind of marketplace for Android phones, Android devices, where you could go on and buy games for your Android phone if they were PlayStation certified, so only certain Android phones, and those same games would work with the PlayStation Vita. And so it was kind of a way that they could bring more legitimacy to the Android gaming marketplace, where it was felt that there was just kind of almost a lot of piracy, a lot of problems with Android gaming. And so it's thought that this would be a way to kind of bring sort of a big player, established game company to the Android marketplace. It was also a way to get new games to come to the Vita in terms of PlayStation Mobile games. And there was just, it was also a kind of a look to the future for PlayStation. They saw mobile as the future of gaming. If you guys remember back to 2011, 2012, everyone thought that mobile was the future of gaming. They thought there was lots of industry analysts predicting that the PlayStation 4 generation would be the last generation of consoles, and mobile was the way forward. Now, that obviously turned out to be wrong, and here we are with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X doing great numbers. So obviously that was wrong, but at the time, PlayStation was looking at mobile thinking that this is the future and we need to be involved in that. And so that was their rationale for doing this, to kind of get a step into the mobile market and kind of establish themselves as a player within that mobile market. Now, it turned out to be wrong in terms of the success. It didn't do very well. Obviously, it was limited by the fact that only certain Android phones could use it, and also the Vita didn't sell well. So there wasn't a big user base when it came to PlayStation Mobile. And so as a result, it didn't do very well, and within 3 years, Sony cancelled it. Sony removed PlayStation Mobile. They closed down the store, and there was a lot of other things that went wrong with it that I'm going to touch on. But there were a few things. But aside from just the user base, Sony didn't really deliver what I would have expected them to deliver. So they promised initially that there would be trophy support and online leaderboards for PlayStation Mobile titles, and that never happened. And so for me, I remember I was buying games for PlayStation Mobile, and there were some games I bought and thought, actually, I'm not going to play this until trophy support comes around. And then they didn't actually release trophy support. So I ended up kind of not playing games that I bought because I was just sort of waiting and hoping that we would get trophy support at some point. So that was kind of a bit of a mistake from them, bad messaging. But the way they shut down PlayStation Mobile was probably the worst thing about it. So in 2015, 3 years after it launched, they basically announced that PlayStation Mobile was shutting down. But worse, they closed down the entire kind of storefront to it. So on your Vita, there used to be a tab that had PlayStation Mobile. That was removed entirely, so you couldn't buy new games. Those games were not able to be purchased anymore. And they made it so that you couldn't download your previous purchases. So I bought a good 20-30 PlayStation Mobile games, and they were just gone after that. There was no way I could kind of download them again. If you had them on your Vita already, you could keep them there. But I remember I had my old Vita. I did have all the PlayStation Mobile titles downloaded on there, but then the left analog stick started drifting, and so I remember I kind of thought, I need to use a different Vita, so I bought another one to use, and I wiped that one and gave it to my kids to use. And so I lost all those games, I lost all those purchases. But that, I think, at the time I kind of thought, okay, it doesn't matter, there are so many games to play, it's, you know, I can live without it. But really now, thinking about it, and now kind of writing a book about the Vita and wanting to go back and research those games and play them again, it's really frustrating. And actually just thinking back to it, they had more than 200 games on PlayStation Mobile that were just purged in one go. As far as I know, that is the biggest purge PlayStation has done of digital games ever. They just got rid of 200 games. You can't buy them, you can't re-download them, they were just gone. Those developers that took the time to make those games, to sell them for PlayStation, had nothing after that. Those games were gone. Anyone who bought those games couldn't re-download them. We were screwed over by that as well. So it was really, really disappointing in terms of the way it was handled. That they just kind of eliminated that storefront completely. And there were some really good games on there. So while I'm talking, I'll have footage of some of the games running. But for me, there were games like Rebel, which it was a really fun little game, and it was only 40p. So I remember when PlayStation Mobile started, they had games there for just 40p or around 50 cents, I think. So really cheap games, but some really good titles. They had Rebel, which is a really fun kind of survival game where you need to kind of dash around the map and try and avoid bullets and have the enemy bullets kind of destroy other enemies. A really fun game with a really good kind of like leveling up system as well, and you're collecting gems to earn new upgrades. It was a really brilliant game, really fun. You had Super Crate Box, which is again brilliant game. It's on Steam and the Switch as well, so you can get it from there. But again, a great game, really fun game. And then games that came out later like Rimmed Capsule, which is just a really kind of fun sort of artistic game where you're trying to kind of craft and survive waves of enemies and trying to research these kind of monuments around the map. Really good game. It's really hard to explain, but it's actually a brilliant game. I'll have footage of it playing. Excellent game. Really worth giving a go. But there were so many really good games on PlayStation Mobile that had just gone, and some of them did manage to kind of get proper Vita ports. But then there are some games like Rebel that I mentioned. That studio closed after making Rebel, so that PlayStation Mobile was the only place that you could play that game. It was exclusive to PlayStation Mobile. You can't buy it or download it even on Steam. Tokyo Jungle Mobile was another one, which was actually really good. It's not quite as good as the PS3 version, but it was a really good port of the game. Really, really great, fun survival game with a good leveling up system. You unlock new animals. There was a lot going on in that game, and it was just a real shame that something like that would get removed and it's just not available anywhere. I really wish that some of these games had just come natively to Vita instead. It's one of these things where Sony should be praised for trying something different, for trying to future-proof themselves. But the way they took these games out so kind of brutally and so quickly is really disappointing. I wish they had just been or the Sony had helped those developers port them over to the Vita, so they had proper trophy support so that we could keep playing them. But they didn't. They just killed that store in one go. And more these days, I do feel, for my Switch especially, I'm becoming more like a digital gamer. I buy games physically, but if I have, Dark Souls is a good example. I've got that game physically on Switch, but I saw it was on sale recently, and I thought, well, it's only about £10. Let's just buy it digitally because I'm feeling lazy about trying to change my cartridge sometimes. More and more, I do feel myself moving towards playing digital games. But whenever you think of something like this, it does make me think, well, this could happen. This could happen at any point where you could just lose access to all your games, not even be able to re-download them. So it's a scary thought and scary sort of consequence of the kind of digital future of gaming. But I'm really kind of disappointed. The more and more I kind of go back and research PlayStation Mobile, and as I write about it, I just felt like I wanted to talk about it because I feel like it's a real mess of a situation that Sony created, that they didn't consider how to future-proof it, how to make sure that you could at least download your games after the store closes. So, I am generally against piracy. I don't think, PKGJ is just really dodgy in my opinion in terms of what it is, and a lot of people seem to be taking games from that instead of buying them now, which is disappointing. But I gotta admit, I downloaded it because of PlayStation Mobile and because I was writing about it, so I could download these games, and this was the only way to do it. So from a preservation perspective, PKGJ did help in terms of being able to get these games and to try them and help me be able to write about them. But if it weren't for that, these games are just entirely gone. You could not get these games for Vita at all, which is just really rubbish. And there are lots of good games there. Like I said, there are a lot of good games. Things like Aqua Kitty, which you can get on or as a native PS Vita game, or Life of Pixel. There's now Super Life of Pixel on the PS Vita. These are really good games that would have been stuck on PS Mobile if they hadn't been ported. And it's just really disappointing as well. You know, the more I write about the PS Vita, the more I feel that there were so many missed opportunities, that Sony tried so much but gave up so quickly on the Vita and these various different services for the Vita, like PS Now, like AR gaming, like PS Mobile. But this one really kind of stings almost, because not only have I lost access to those games, we've all lost access to them. You can't buy them, you can't download them again. And those developers who took the effort to bring games to PlayStation Mobile to support this service that PlayStation launched have just been kind of screwed over by it. And I know it happened, 6 years ago, but it's just disappointing in my opinion. Anyway, guys, wanted to talk about that and just kind of shine a light on some of these PlayStation Mobile games, especially some of the really great releases that are out there. Rebel is great, Rim Capsule is great, you can get that on mobile phones, you can get it on iPhone or Android. Super Crate Box is a really good game, like I said, Switch or Steam. Aqua Kitty is on Vita, great game. Super Life of Pixel, very tough, but also a really interesting and fun game as well. You can grab these games and support the developers, but something like Rebel and Tokyo Jungle Mobile, it really is frustrating and disappointing to me that they're gone forever. Anyway, guys, let me know in the comments, did you buy any PlayStation Mobile games? Did you play any of them? What are your favorites? Leave a comment below, and as always, thanks for watching.